Hi there, and welcome to today's live. It's Tuesday, 1 o'clock, and I'm coming to you live from my home. Had a lovely day where I've been able to work from home all day. So slightly different settings, but just as effective. So today is the last part of our building your own eating plan. So let's start with the PowerPoint. And then you can finally set up your eating plan. Okay, so today is the last part, and it's the bringing it all together. So just as a reminder of the important things that you're needing to do or think about when you're setting up your eating plan is to have your breakfast within an hour of getting up. That if you're exercising in the morning, to either have the breakfast before, or if you can't stomach a breakfast before because it's too early, then just have a little snack like a fruit and then the breakfast straight after. This can also be the case if you need to rush out of the house and there isn't time to eat breakfast in the morning, to have a little something like a fruit and then to eat breakfast 1 or 2 hours later when you have the time to sit down and do it. Then also remember that we're needing to space the meals nicely and evenly through the day, with more coming in, slightly more coming in during the day, the earlier part of the day. And then when you're thinking about each of your meals, I want you to think in complete balanced format in terms of most meals should have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Okay, so the first step that we have to do is we have to decide how many calories you need to eat. Okay, so remember that we need to eat enough. So we've seen this slide before. So if you are a woman and you want to lose weight, go anywhere between 1,200, 1,300. If you are a woman and you are exercising and you want to lose weight, then you must make it around 1,500, 1,600. If you have just doing it for health and there's no weight loss needed, then you do about 1,500 as a woman. And then if you are exercising but you don't want to lose weight and it's just for health, then we're looking at around 1,800. And remember that as you start eating, according to your eating plan, you've got this calorie number that you're going towards, it will change depending on how your body is handling it. So your body will ultimately tell you exactly where you need to be, but this is just a nice base to go from as a starting point. Then once you feel your hunger and you know when to eat, and then you feel your satiety and you know when to stop to eat, that will then, your body will then perfectly give you the right amount of calories that you need. We're just ballparking it so that we've got a structure to go from. Then the next step is we've got to take these calories and we've got to divide them into our carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So if we're looking between 1,300 calorie diet and 1,800 calorie diet, then roughly we need about 8 to 10 portions of carbohydrate, 7 to 9 of protein, and 6 to 9 of fat. Okay, so what I've added in here is that a carbohydrate portion is 80 calories, that a protein portion is about 55 calories, and a fat portion is about 45 calories. Okay, so with that in mind, you can literally take your calorie count and do as little or as much of any of those carbohydrates, proteins, and fats as you feel comfortable with. I would suggest a balance of them, because ideally going too low carbohydrate can have problems. Then we can then have problems with cravings because the blood sugar levels are not being kept nice and stable, or then your body's looking for glucose elsewhere in the body. So I would suggest a balance, but ultimately this is where you can decide, I feel more comfortable slightly less carbohydrates, or I need more carbohydrates. If I look at myself per se, I probably have more closer to 12 to 15 carbohydrates in a day. I do have quite a high calorie intake. I do exercise and I'm not trying to lose weight, but that's sort of where I feel and my body feels happy. But everyone's body is different and everyone does differently with foods. The thing to remember also is that don't let your head decide you don't need carbs. Let your body decide which nutrients and macronutrients of carbohydrates, protein, and fats it does best with. So here we've got a couple of examples in the box. So if you wanted a 1300 calorie diet, it's 8 carbs, 6 protein, 6 fats. Okay. If you look at the 15, I've got 3 different suggestions. One is 8, one is 9, one is 10 carbs. And so then the proteins and the fats change accordingly. So this is really where you can pick and choose and decide what suits your kind of body and your kind of eating and make up the calories accordingly. Then the next step is we use an eating plan template to set up the pattern that we're going to use and sort of where the exchanges will fall into. So in this example that I'm doing currently here, I'm using a 1500 calorie diet and I've broken it down into 8 carbs, 8 proteins and 8 fats. Okay, so that's just the example that I'm doing with, but you play with whatever you are working with. And then I've got 2 examples here. So the one on the first one is I've decided, and all of them I'm starting with the breakfast at 7. And then I'm deciding, the first one I'm deciding I'm going to eat every 3 hours. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. In the second example, I've decided more, I don't do well, I can have lunch whenever I want to. So I'm going to do 4-hour gaps. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you can decide, do you want your lunch at 11 and a little snack or a biggish snack then at 3? Or do you want your snack at 11 and your lunch at 3? So again, that depends on how your day works, how your day fits in, where you're at. The first one is if you need a 1 o'clock lunch. I find quite nicely 4-hour gaps in between work very nicely. But that can only work if you don't need that 1 o'clock lunch, if you're quite flexible with your lunch. And then we decide. So we look at, okay, so I'm going to have 2 carbs for breakfast and I'm going to have some milk with that. And then the snack, I'm just going to have a fruit. The lunch, I'm going to have 2 carbs. The afternoon snack, I'll have 1 fruit. And the dinner, I'll have 1 carb then. So we've got 2 starches and the milk. So we're already on 3. Then the fruit, then the 2 starches, then the fruit, and then the starch at dinner. So we've got 8 carbs in that way. Okay. In the second example with the 4-hour gaps, we've got 2 starches with the milk. We've got then the snack has got a bit more. It's got the fruit and the milk. And then the lunch has got 2 carbs and the dinner's got 1 carb. So also coming up to 8 carbs. And you can play around with that as to how you want to balance it out, remembering that more needs to come in earlier rather than later. And then the proteins, I've just added them. So we've got 8 proteins to work with. So I've done 3 at dinner, 3 at lunch, and then 2 at one of the snacks. And then the fats also just a little bit at each of the meals, and then also 2 at the one snack where I don't have the protein. For the first one, the second one, I've done it a little differently because I've only got 1 snack, but the 2 proteins there, and only got 1 fat there, and I've given that other fat to the dinner. It literally, there is no rule to say what is exactly right. There's no wrong answer or no terribly wrong answer, as long as you're going to, with the guidelines. And the guidelines are, so in step 4, you do the checklist. Are my carbs divided into the day with more coming in the start of the day? So if we look back, yes, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming in the first half and only 2 in the second half. And in the other one, we've actually got 7 in the first part of the day and then 1 in the latter part of the day. Then do I have proteins or fats with the carbohydrates? So if you look at each meal, there's either fat and protein for the main meals, or then at least fat or protein. Sorry, wrong way. Then is the timing of my meals such that I don't have gaps longer than 5 hours? Yes, the gaps are 3 hours in the one and 4 hours in the other. And then is my breakfast within an hour of waking? Okay, so I'm assuming I have 6 o'clock wake up here, between 6 and 7. So then yes, it is, because my start time is 7. Okay, and then we're on step 5 where we're putting it all together. And there, literally, you're just going to find foods that you enjoy and then portion them according to the exchanges that you organized. And then you just add extra food as needed to balance them out. So I'm taking the first example here that we did earlier with the 3-hour gaps. Okay, I'm just adding in here, this is my original plan that when I wrote down my eating plan, this is what I came up with. So I don't think we ever did this here, but basically for breakfast, I was having cooked oats with sugar. And that was a 7 o'clock start. Then at 12, I was having a sandwich with some tuna mayo. At 6, I was having a fruit or popcorn or biscuits. At 7, I was having a fish or chicken with veggies. And then at 8, I was having a chocolate. So this is what was happening in my day. And now we're going to put that into a little bit of a better look. So, okay, we're still going to have a 7 o'clock start. I've got 2 starches of milk and 2 fats. So, and we're working with oats. So we're going to do a cup of cooked oats. If you want to measure it from raw, you just do half a cup of raw. And then I've got a milk exchange. So then we cook the oats in a cup of milk, okay? If you do not like cooking in milk, then you just change the milk exchange to a fruit exchange. And here's an example. I've said a tablespoon of raisins, but we could cut up an egg or grate an egg. We could grate an apple into it and make it cinnamon apple oats, something like that. So the world is your oyster. And then we've got 2 fats to work with. So I'm going to either add 2 teaspoons of peanut butter or 2 tablespoons of seeds to that mix. Okay, so we've got a really nice balanced breakfast then. Okay, so a problem that I'm having with my original plan is there was no snacks. The first gap, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, was a bit long. And so that's why the rest of the day then didn't go so well. So we're going to put a piece of fruit in at 10 o'clock. I've also got 2 proteins to have there. So you can have about 40 grams of biltong or 2 boiled eggs or something like that with the fruit as well. And then that'll hold you nicely. For 1 o'clock, I was having a sandwich with tuna mayo. So how can we improve on that? Said, let's do a whole wheat roll instead, but you can do seed loaf, 2 slices of seed loaf. You could do a nice whole wheat wrap. All of those would be equivalent to 2 carbohydrates. And then we've got 3 proteins to work with. So we can do 90 grams of chicken breast or a tin of tuna that goes onto that roll. And then we've got 2 fats as well. So there we can do a tablespoon of light mayo and a quarter avo, for example. You can do hummus, you can do avo, you could do margarine or butter on your bread as well. It's not your best source of fat, but it is not wrong to do. And then, of course, we want to add some veggies to this meal. The more meals we add veggies to, the better. So we can add a cup of raw veg as crudité to it. We can have a little side salad with it. We could just have like lettuce, tomato, cucumber on the roll as well to make the roll more crunchy as you bite into it. Okay, so we want to start adding more veg in because it extends the meal, makes us feel fuller, it also gives extra crunch and texture and taste, and all round it is going to bring lots of health. Then comes 4 o'clock. There we've got fruit again. If you've had enough of fruit, you can also make that into a little yogurt. Or winter now for us, we can do a glass of milk, heat it up with a teaspoon of hot chocolate or Milo or something added to it. So there's a lot of options that you can do with this. And then we've got 2 fats with that. So we're going to have about 20 grams of nuts or seeds with it as well. Okay, and then come 7 o'clock, we're not going to be starving. So here we've got 1 starch. So I've just said half a cup of brown rice. We can do half a cup of whole wheat pasta as well. We can do quinoa. We can do a small half a fist size of potato. Any one of those would be absolutely fine to have. And then we're going to have 90 grams of lean mince with this. We're also going to use 2 teaspoons of oil for cooking. Or then if you are not using any oil to make the meal, then you just add some, maybe as an example, 8 olives and a tablespoon of seeds to the meal. Okay, so we can either add the fat after if we're not cooking with a lot, but if we are cooking with some, then that is the fat that we're using. And then of course we mustn't forget our veggies, because that makes the supper look bigger and more, the eye hunger will be more satisfied when it looks like a bigger meal, because the eyes are the ones that look at the small meal and go, no, that's not enough, even though the stomach will say that's perfectly fine once it's gotten the food, but eye hunger is needed to be pleased as well. So then we add 1 to 2 cups of cooked free veggies. I'm saying cooked free veggies. It can be cooked, it can be raw. In the whole day, remember, we want a combination of the two. We want some raw, some cooked. And absolutely, you can have more if you need more. And especially right at the start, I find people do need quite a bit more, especially if they were used to bigger portions. But with time, that normally does normalize as your stomach corrects its size and shrinks a little bit. And then don't forget to put your water on. I always add water to this. So for that 60 kilogram person, we're looking at about 2 liters of water a day. Good to add in just to remind yourself. In terms of water, it's getting a little bit difficult here by us now with winter coming. So make sure that it's warm water then if you are not able to drink the cold water. And that's it. That's us with the eating plan. We've put it together. We've got the structure now. Play around a little bit with that, see how that goes. And then let me know if you've managed to put a plan together and how you're feeling about it and how it's working out. These are great to do to give you an idea of how you should be eating. In all honesty, this is a nice week eating plan. The weekend eating plans may need to be different, and you may need to do a different plan for a weekend. And initially, what I always get people to do is think about each weekend day individually in terms of Saturday is not going to look the same as Sunday. This week Saturday is not going to look the same as next week Saturday. So we've got to think a little bit about how we're going to put the pattern together. And once we've got that pattern, once you get used to that pattern, you'll learn how to be flexible and how to manage the eating without needing to do these eating plans and writing it all down for yourself. But I hope you've enjoyed that. The live series will be continuing every Tuesday. I think we're taking a break next Tuesday, but after that, we've got something in store for you. So join us again, and hope you've enjoyed this building your own personalized eating plan. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Goodbye.